Dear friends, welcome to another very exciting edition of Data Science Tutorials. Myself, Dr. Suptik Mukherjee. Today's topic is handling data with some null values using pandas. But before we move on to the topic, I have a small request. Please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. We put a lot of hard work and effort in creating these videos. If you subscribe, it will motivate us significantly. Also, the Jupyter notebook that you are using today, including the code, is available in the GitHub repository. The link for which is provided in the description as well as here. The dataset that you are using is also available in the repository. Now, coming on to the topic. In order to use pandas, we first need to import the pandas library. So your pandas, import pandas as PD. But that's the usual nomenclature. It need not necessarily be PD. It can be any name. Now, I have the file here, data with nulls, right? I'll show you how it looks like. So this is the file, data with nulls, age, height, weight. You can see the null values. That's the missing values out here, right? So now I need to read this file. In order to read this file, I need to use the dot read underscore csv method. So with that, I create a data structure, a data frame with I read this file and create a data frame. Now I display the data frame. Okay. So if I go to cell and run all, then let's see what we have here. First of all, we have the data frame where you can see that we have NaN. What does NaN mean? Not a number. So we have age, the 0 is first, second, third, fourth row. Age we have not a number. Height, second row, we have not a number. Okay. Now what the goal here is to make this file useful by either inserting some values or ignoring these values. So first what we do is we remove the rows with null values, right? How can we do that? We use the drop na method. So we have the data frame df with null csv dot drop na method, right? And then we have the then we print it, so we get the values which does not contain the null values anymore. So if you see here, second one we have 24, null 75, we have that missing, right? We have null 172.65, we have that missing. Okay, so now the other option is to get the mean of each column. We use two methods, dot fill na and mean method. So first, fill null values with the mean of each column. We use the data frame dot mean, and then we use the dot fill na method. So what if we just use the mean and see what happens? We print the values and we see that we get age 25, these are being filled, height 165 and weight 161. These are the mean values which will be filled in place of the null values. Okay, but that's not the best method. But anyway, once we do it and we fill the data frame completely, print the data frame, then what we get is, instead of the null values, we see these values being filled out, right? Null, we have 165. Null, we have 25.75, right? Okay, so, but that's not necessarily the best method. But we try to use this data frame and apply some statistical tools and see what we get. So if we apply the statistical tool dot describe method, which essentially gives me a bunch of statistical values, and then if you apply it on the data frame which is filled with this new mean values instead of the null values, then we get count, which is total number of elements, mean, standard deviation, minimum. 25% means that below which 25% of the values are there. 50% means 50% of the values on top of it, 50% of the below it. And 75 means below which 75% of the values reside, and the maximum value. So, and I provided all these details here. You can have a look at 50% also is the median. Okay. Now, the other option is to impute the missing values. How do you impute? Using statistical tools. And you use the KNN imputer, which is K nearest neighbors algorithm or regression model. Okay. So in order to do that, we use the class KNN imputer. And I have an entire video on the class, the methods, the instance, object, inheritance. Please go through that. Now, I put the neighbors as 2. So it's essentially 2 neighbors I'm looking at. Now I use the fit transform. So I use a fit transform method. And this, so what this is going to do, the fit transform method, you see here, the first the fit transform with the null values. And so first the KNN imputer dot fit transform. So that's basically going to fit the values that you obtain using the KNN imputer, in other words a K nearest neighbor algorithm, in place of the null values, and we apply it for all columns. So we say columns is equal to our data file, our data frame dot columns. That means it applies to all columns, right? So once you have that, once you have all that, then you get a new data frame. Now if you use that new data frame and the describe method, then first of all what we had printed, what do we get using the fit transform method. Using the fit transform method, we get values inserted, right? And then we looked at what we had originally. So now you see, instead of 160 null, we have 170, and instead of 22 null, we have 28 points. See, these values are closer to than what you have in the mean. If you look at the mean, what we get, if you look at the mean, we get 25.75. Here you get 28.5, which is kind of closer to these values. So this is a different way of looking at it, but I think you can try all the ways and see what works best based on the particular problem that you have. And then when you use the data frame, so when you use the describe on the new data frame, you essentially get all these values as we have done before. That's all we have for this video, friends. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and happy learning.